Many feature films rely on expensive sets built on Hollywood backlots. Millions of dollars are spent to create the worlds of our favorite stories, only for them to be torn down once filming is wrapped. But movies that shoot scenes on location can not only add a sense of authenticity to those worlds, they can leave little pieces of them behind in the real world, for fans to visit whenever they please. Here are 10 locations from some of Tinseltown's most beloved films that exist in real life. 1984's Ghostbusters was nowhere near a surefire hit, as many executives at the time were spooked at the thought of a supernatural comedy, a genre which traditionally didn't do much at the box office. The absence of the recently deceased John Belushi, who was originally intended to be a part of the cast, didn't help matters. But as we know now, the film managed to not only turn a profit, it became one of the most cherished comedies of all time, even if neither the 1989 sequel nor the 2016 reboot quite lived up to fans' expectations. Egon may have thought the building should be condemned, but the Ghostbusters' iconic Firehouse headquarters still stands today at 14 North Moore Street in New York City. In 2016, work began on a $6 million facelift, which the 113-year-old building was in dire need of. Upgrades included new plumbing and electrical systems, as well as a new kitchen, bathroom, and roof. It's still in use as a firehouse, accommodating Fire Station Hook and Ladder Company No. 8, and it's one of many century-plus-old firehouses still in use in the Big Apple. But you'll know you've reached the right place once you spot the 2 Ghostbusters logos painted on the sidewalk out front. The Harry Potter novel series became a worldwide phenomenon in the late 90s, and the film adaptation didn't disappoint fans, critics, or Warner Brothers executives. It's currently the second highest grossing film series of all time, behind only the sprawling Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a plan is in place to continue the series with a total of 5 new films, a continuation which began with 2016's well-received Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Many of the series' magical locations could only have been conjured up through the use of CGI, but many of them are real places around the UK that fans flock to on a daily basis. Most notably, 1,000-year-old Alnwick Castle provided the exterior shots for Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. One wing of the castle is actually occupied by the Duke of Northumberland, while the rest is open to the public. The castle's grounds were also the setting for the first film's famous Quidditch training scene. You can't get there in the Hogwarts Express, but you can visit another location that will make you feel like the famous train is coming right around the corner. Shots of the locomotive approaching school grounds on its famous raised track were filmed on location at the scenic Glenfinnan Viaduct in Scotland. It may seem impossible to visit a real-life location from an animated film, but Pixar's animators used real life as a design template for many of their locations and characters. 2009's Up is the story of an elderly man on a mission to pilot his balloon-assisted flying house to Paradise Falls to fulfill a promise made to his late wife. It's one of Pixar's most touching and visually accomplished efforts, and the animator's inspiration for Paradise Falls is appropriately one of the most stunningly scenic regions on Earth. Nestled in the rainforest of Venezuela, Angel Falls is the highest uninterrupted waterfall on the planet, with a main plunge of over 2,800 feet. Animators spent 3 days drawing, painting, and taking pictures of the famous waterfall for reference, before going to the drawing board to create their version for Pixar's hit film. Director Pete Docter expressed hope that their animated rendering, along with the DVD extra feature detailing how Paradise Falls was brought to life, would inspire more people to visit the actual location, and called the animators' location visit the most magnificent trip many of them would ever take in their lives. The Lord of the Rings series brought J.R.R. Tolkien's world of Middle-earth to vivid life, but filmmakers didn't have to look far for inspiration. Series director Peter Jackson is native to New Zealand, and his home country's spectacular landscapes were an obvious and perfect setting to shoot many of the series' most famous scenes. One location in particular was envisioned by Jackson as the perfect one to stand in for the Shire, where heroic hobbit Frodo lives and begins his journey, and today it's virtually impossible to picture the location as anything but. That's because of the hobbit holes, tiny homes built into the rolling mountainside that remained after filming was completed. The area was and still is home to an active sheep farm, but the portion that was used as a film set is now closed off from the rest of the farm and is open to the public. The tree at Bag End looks just like the one in the movie, but it's actually not. It's a fake replica, hand-painted to look exactly like the original, which was a real tree that was transplanted to the location and died shortly after filming. Fans can take a bus to the set from the small town of Matamata nearby, which today likely has more tourism than they ever bargained for. British Columbia's Hatley Castle was constructed in 1908 for the region's lieutenant governor, but it has served many different purposes since then. It's been used as a naval college, and in 1994 was converted into Royal Roads University, but it has also moonlighted as a movie and television star. The castle has become something of a go-to whenever a stately old mansion is needed, and has appeared in television series from Arrow and Smallville to AMC's drama series The Killing, but its most prominent use was as the exterior of Professor Xavier's school for gifted youngsters in the X-Men film series, beginning with the first film in 2000. It most recently appeared in 2016's Deadpool, and it will reprise its most famous role in that film's forthcoming 2018 sequel. For Christopher Nolan's 2005 reboot Batman Begins, an updated yet gothic take on Wayne Manor was required. His solution was Mentmore Towers, a stunning 19th century English country house built for the Rothschild family. Mentmore has changed hands many times over the decades, but it has consistently been a towering presence on the screen. The mansion was featured in such films as Brazil, Eyes Wide Shut, and The Mummy Returns, before being cast as the first iteration of Nolan's Wayne Manor. Since the mansion burns to the ground at the end of Batman Begins, Bruce Wayne is mansionless for the events of the sequel The Dark Knight. But by the third installment, Wayne Manor had been rebuilt, and plans were underway to turn Mentmore into a resort and golf course, necessitating that the role be recast. The part went to Wallerton Hall, an Elizabethan mansion which houses the Nottingham Natural History Museum, in its film debut. The Twilight series of novels and films struck gold by combining a classic coming-of-age romance with vampires and werewolves, and the dreary setting helped to set the series' tragically romantic tone. While the novels were set in Washington State, the films turned to the neighboring state of Oregon to replicate some of the novel's most iconic locations. Most notably, the high school that the main characters attend was a composite of two separate real-life high schools. Kalama High in Kalama, Washington was used for the exterior shots, but the interior action was filmed at Madison High in Portland, Oregon. Other Oregon locations included the Carver Cafe in the tiny town of Damascus, where the characters hang out after school hours. And if you want to visit Bella's house, you can do that too. It's located at 184 South 6th Street in St. Helens, Oregon. The state of Georgia's tax credit system has made the state a filmmaking hotspot, the #3 filming location in the US behind Los Angeles and New York. Atlanta in particular has become something of a mecca for on-location filming, standing in for any number of other US cities. It's able to do this because of its relatively common architecture, but if your film setting happens to require high-concept futurism, Atlanta has that too. The Marriott Marquis, built in 1985, features an abstract design and an atrium that looks sleek and futuristic even today. It was first featured shortly after completion in the 1986 film Manhunter, the first adaptation of the Thomas Harris novel Red Dragon, and the first on-screen appearance of Hannibal Lecter, but it was featured more prominently in the second and third films of the Hunger Games series, as the setting for many scenes in the Capitol's Tribute Center. It may have looked like a set built specifically for the dystopian film series, but you can pop into the Marquis Atrium anytime and feel for a moment like you've been transported to the Tribute Center yourself. 2010's widely acclaimed 127 Hours is based on the harrowing true story of Aaron Ralston, who found himself alone in the woods with his arm pinned under a boulder for just that length of time. One of the film's early scenes features a gorgeous pool made from a natural underground cave formation that appears as though it only could have sprung from the minds of Hollywood set designers. But it's an actual location in the same state in which the story takes place, although it's a bit far to the north. The beautiful underground pool is located about 30 miles outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, at the Homestead Resort and Spa at Midway, about 300 miles from where the real Aaron Ralston went through his ordeal. Visitors must schedule all activities with the spa's staff in advance, and keep in mind that these activities absolutely do not include jumping in from the lip of the cave like James Franco does in the film. That was a little bit of creative license by the filmmakers. The world of Star Wars feels as real to many fans as the real world, and with good reason. The original film's spectacular and meticulous set design contributed to the feel of an actual lived-in world, something no science fiction film before had accomplished. Most fans know that throughout the series, scenes taking place on the iconic desert planet of Tatooine were shot on location in Tunisia, but many would be shocked to see those locations today. That's because many of the sets comprising Tatooine's landscape still stand in the middle of the Sahara, slowly being consumed by the desert. Aside from the passage of time, they still look exactly as they did in the films, and were once booming tourist attractions. Many of the workers who helped build the sets still live right nearby, having for years made their living from the tourism which is now fading. Fans who want to get a look at Anakin Skywalker's home planet may want to do so soon, before the sands of time, not to mention the actual sands, swallow it up completely.